Well, that's that.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And you can follow me. I'm your pal. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Hey, I see some of you are in the live chat right now. Let me know if you're hearing me correctly, because there's a little buzz in my headphones here. So if you're hearing me fine, just let me know. Hey, let me just bring this up. Tonight, we're done. That's it. No more games. There's going to be spring training and there'll be off-season stuff, but the baseball season is over. And the Los Angeles Dodgers have been crowned World Series champs. And I've now finished my 6th full season here. And I've seen all different kinds of championships and big moments and big teams winning. And I am hard-pressed to think of a game quite like this that I've seen. I've seen some games where there's been some wild comebacks. I think one of the most underrated games of the last 20 years was Game 7 between Houston and Washington, where Houston was just in charge the whole time, and then Howie Kendrick hit that home run and flipped the game on its head. There have been fabulous games and wonderful rug pulls we've seen. But tonight's was just strange. It really felt like we watched two different games tonight. This felt like the first half was one game, and then there was this weird airlock, and then the second half was a strange, tense battle. I mean, we went through the whole Anthony Volpe flipping the script, and suddenly people started looking around. I saw people were all nervous here in Los Angeles County looking around. And my Dodger fan friends were getting worried. My Yankee fans were getting a little cocky, and something very clear was afoot. And that was Garrett Cole, the best pitcher currently on the roster, was going on full rest for the Yankees. And Flaherty, who pitched quite well, thank you very much, in game 1, was going. And because the previous game was a bullpen game and they didn't use Brazier, they didn't use Kopech, they didn't use Trinan or Gratterall, all those guys could go a couple innings. And this might be a pitcher's duel. And right from the start, Aaron Judge woke up. He homered. And Chisholm homered. And Craig Calcaterra, friend of the podcast, had noted that maybe it wasn't a great idea the previous night. He said this the previous night, even though the Dodgers were kind of punting and not using their top relievers, to not let the Yankees offense wake up. Well, Flaherty didn't have it. And suddenly it became another bullpen game. And the domino effect of that was, oh my God, how are the Dodgers even going to get 27 outs or 24 outs? I mean, who will they physically be pitching? And I actually thought if the game was starting to get out of hand, you might see Kiki Hernandez pitching. 5-0 after 3, and Garrett Cole locked in going into the 5th. I mean, I was already writing the podcast in my head, knowing that suddenly we've got a game on Friday. knowing suddenly the groundskeepers and all the people working at Dodger Stadium who thought that they had had their last game, so you better you're going to work on Friday. And then came one of the strangest innings I have ever heard in my life. And I have to say heard, because once again, I was listening to the game. I enjoy listening to the game more than anything. I was walking Eleanor, the dog, walking through the park, listening to the game intently. And it just was weird. Hernandez broke up the no-hitter. Okay, that's fine. No one really thought Cole was going to throw a no-hitter. And then lazy fly ball to center field, clunk. Judge, who had already homered and made a great play in center field, looked like it was going to be the Aaron Judge game, clunk off his glove. And then the weird play with Will Smith hit the ground ball to Volpe. And Volpe, instead of throwing it to first to get the easy out, threw it wildly to third and got no outs. No atom in my body understood that. The Yankees were up 5-0. That runner going to third wasn't the tying run. Get the out at first. And then Gavin Lux and Shohei Ohtani were swinging at everything. And I thought, well, there you go there. And then Mookie Betts ground ball to first. And Garrett Cole, who had been brilliant up until that point, forgot how to play baseball and didn't cover first. And that's how the tiny little break in the armor happened. You know, we talked about what happened in game one. If one tiny pitch had changed and Cortez threw a better pitch to Freeman or Hill was pitching, is what probably should have happened, game one would have been totally different. I am convinced that if Garrett Cole covered first, the Yankees are going to game 6 because he would have gotten out of that 5-0. All right, a couple of errors, dust yourself off. Nope. Suddenly, one run came in. Freddie Freeman realized he didn't need a home run. He got the base hit, and Teoscar Hernandez got the double to tie it, and suddenly we were watching a different game. We flipped the channel. We were watching a Yankee blowout, and suddenly, because the Yankees, for one inning, became the bad news Bears and didn't just make physical errors, made mental errors, suddenly it was tied. Now, I have to tell you this. I'm walking Eleanor, my dog, through the park listening to the game. I'm not in a bar experiencing this with other people. I am walking the dog. And as I'm walking the dog, when the game was tied, I couldn't believe it. And I looked over and I was walking with the radio on in my hand on the MLB app, listening to the Dodger radio feed when the game was tied. And I looked around, wanted to share this moment. And about 10 feet from me was an older Asian woman who looked up at me and said, I'm not going to try to mimic her voice, but she said, "Did they tie it?" And I said, "Yeah." And she ran over to give me a high five. I didn't tell her that I was the flagship host of Locked On MLB, and I'm not supposed to be partial, but I'm in LA County. What do you want from me? And then came the other weird part of this game. Flaherty, Banda, Brazier, Kopech, they all pitched before that crazy inning. And Vesia, wild inning, loaded the bases, got out of it. Then Gratterall, who was supposed to be the big stud, allowed the go-ahead run. He couldn't get out of the 6th. They had to use the closer in the 6th. And that's when I'm actually thinking to myself, holy Toledo, are they going to run out of arms in a one-run game? And this is where the first real big pitching hero for the Dodgers has to take a bow. Blake Trinan got out of a 2-on, 2-out situation, Volpe to ground out. Trinan then got Wells, Verdugo, and Torres 1, 2, 3 in the 7th. That's when the 8th happened. And once again, dumb plays. I mean, you had Tommy Kahnle didn't have it, let up a couple hits and a walk. He did not have it. In came Luke Weaver trying to get a 2-out save, and there was a catcher interference, and Luke Weaver forgetting, oh my God, he threw to first base. Oh, actually, no, that was in the ninth inning. But you got a catcher's interference that loaded the bases. Lux and Betts both hit sacrifice flies. Suddenly it's 7-6. But Blake, in any normal situation, Blake Treinen had done his job, but he had to pitch the eighth, and then had first and second, and Dave Roberts did the whole look me in the eye. I gotta leave you in here. Ironically, almost pulling a Grady Little. And then he got Anthony Rizzo to strike out. There was 2 on, 1 out, and Stanton up. And he got Rizzo to strike out. I really thought the Dodgers were going to get an insurance run, especially after the balk by Weaver. But good on Mark Leiter Jr., strikeout, ground out. And then Walker Buehler. And I'm reminded of a viewer, Boogie 23er said, how can you say Buehler is a beatable pitcher? Did you see what he did to the Mets? And I defer to you, Boogie 23er. Walker Buehler proved me wrong. And he came out. And keep in mind, going into today's game, Walker Buehler was tied with me for lifetime saves. 0. And as good friend of the podcast, Jeff Cohen pointed out that Mike Montgomery for the Cubs in 2016 got his first career save in to clinch the 2016 World Series for the Cubs. And when we go to last year, so yes, that's true. Both Walker Buehler and Mike Montgomery got their first career saves clinching the World Series. There was one more, and that was Josh Sborz, who clinched the World Series last year for the Texas Rangers. That was not his first career Major League save. That was save number 2. He still has only 2 saves, one in 2021 for the Rangers and one clinching the World Series. So for the second time in as many years, we have had a unusual closer closing out the World Series. But I'll tell you, do you know who answered his critics today as the Dodgers won the World Series? Is Dave Roberts. First of all, do you know what? I'm going to keep my powder dry a little bit as we're running a little bit long here. I'll tell you why Dave Roberts answered his critics and why I don't want to hear a darn thing from anybody criticizing him. Hey, let's hear from our friends at Game Time. I'm sure some of you bought tickets to Game 6 of the World Series at Dodger Stadium. I'm guessing you're getting a rebate. But do you know what? You could use Game Time for a lot of other tickets as well. You could get it for football, basketball, concerts, comedy, theater, all sorts of things. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier, and the price on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. With killer last-minute detail deals, live read, all-in prices and viewed from the seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I used it before to get my tickets for Game 6 of the NLCS, and I used the zone deals. It's saving more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. You have all-in pricing. You show that you get no surprise fees, and the seat view. You get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. Do you know what they are? They are guaranteed. First of all, you cannot call this an illegitimate title. The Braves won one title and won all those division titles, and the Dodgers only won one World Series. It was the COVID World Series, so that shouldn't count. Of course, it should count. That was the only World Series anyone played that year. But no one could say anything about this one. Nope, nope. And did I mention nope? And I'll tell you something. Dave Roberts has gotten a lot of guff and a lot of people criticizing his managerial style, this, that, or the other thing. I'm here in LA, and there are some people talk about Dave Roberts like, oh, they should get a new manager, this, that, or the other thing. He has answered his critics because he was handed a team to go to the playoffs that didn't have a starting rotation. There wasn't a starting rotation. I'm sorry, folks, but there wasn't. And you take a look at this Dodger team, the team that went in here. Okay, you have Yamamoto, but Yamamoto was hurt for a big chunk of the season, and he couldn't go more than 5, 6 at the top. Okay, they brought in Flaherty, and Flaherty pitched fine and had a couple of very good games, but as we also saw, he was vulnerable. Glasnow was hurt. Stone was hurt. Bobby Miller was hurt. Clayton Kershaw was hurt. Walker Buehler had a lost season. James Paxton was gone. Who else got to put out a bunch of starts? Landon Knack was used out of the bullpen. They didn't have a starting rotation. They went into all 3 series earmarking, well, that's going to be a bullpen game. Keeping in mind that if a pitcher got smacked around, that'll be another bullpen game. And Dave Roberts won 2 critical games using the bullpen, really 3, facing elimination against a red-hot and motivated Padres team in San Diego without a starting pitcher. Dave Roberts handled the bullpen game and won that and wound up winning that series. In the clinching game against the Mets, a game 6, where if the Mets had rallied and won that game, there would have been a game 7, lest we forget. They weaved through a bullpen game for the clincher. And having a bullpen game yesterday, having the good sense, some people thought it was arrogant, but turned out to be the right thing to do, to punt and not use some of his top relievers in that game. Today, this is the perils if you don't have an innings-eating starter. They had to go to the bullpen in the 2nd inning. This wasn't supposed to be a bullpen game. It became back-to-back bullpen games. And he worked it. It worked. They won. And anyone who wants to talk trash about his managerial decisions, I offer those bullpen games as, hey, he was handed a team to go to the playoffs where the pitching staff was decimated. And if they got eliminated by San Diego, nobody would have been surprised, especially when they were down 2-1 in a best-of-5 series without a starting pitcher. They were expected to be clobbered, and they won the whole thing. And in a game that got out of hand early, he managed to hit the right buttons and stuck with Trinan when probably all the analytics told him not to, and went to Buehler to close it out. I don't want to hear any criticism of Dave Roberts as a manager, who, by the way, now has more World Series titles as a manager than Jim Leland, than Earl Weaver, than Leo DeRocher, than Bobby Cox, than Billy Martin. Am I saying he's better than all of them? No, of course not. But do you know what? If he continues winning division titles and another World Series title, yeah, we may talk about Cooperstown with him. Why not? There's a lot of people making comments here. We will get this in a second. But I will also say there's another big thing to talk about. Yes, the Dodgers won. Also, yes, the Yankees lost. And in many ways, this game will sting and take away the positivity that was in the Anthony Volpe game. Anthony Volpe uh, basically made sure the series wasn't a sweep, and good for him. And he showed up today as well. But to go out this way, if the Yankees won this and it went to game 6 and they lost in Los Angeles in game 6, yeah, that would have been bad for Yankee fans, but at least they would have been able to say, hey, they went down fighting. And there's no shame in losing to a team like the Dodgers in 6 games. They just were the better team. They all saw it. And they dust themselves off and say, well, at least they didn't go down without a fight. But to lose like this, where it wasn't that it was 2 great pitchers and a great pitcher's duel. It wasn't that, oh, you know what? You got to tip your hat, and they just outslugged them. The Yankees played stupid baseball. They made mental mistakes. They made physical mistakes. They handed this game and eventually the World Series to Los Angeles. And LA celebrated on their field, and the first time a team came back from a 5-0 deficit to clinch the World Series. This was it. That's the first time that happened. Other teams have come back from 5-run deficits, but not to clinch a title, which is exactly what Los Angeles did. I don't blame this loss on Boone. What move did he make that was dumb? He didn't forget to cover first. He didn't throw to third. He didn't uh, uh, do catcher's interference. But he's going to get some blame for how the first 3 games and the final game, the Yankees just look listless. And I think this negates the positivity of the Volpe home run. If the Yankees won game 3, okay, and then lost games 4 and 5 in this manner, this would be just this would look bad. And it's going to leave a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of Yankee fans. And ironically, it's when Cashman and Boone finally got over the hump and got back into the World Series with his squad. This should have been, even if they had lost in a sweep and the final game was a well-played game and LA just won, I think that would have been bad, but losing because your head wasn't in it, that's that's gonna sting. Now, I'm gonna answer, there's some questions came on here. We are gonna continue doing shows all through the off season. And tomorrow's show, we're gonna let the dust settle a little bit and see who deserves this, that, or the other thing in terms of praise, who needs to prove something. But Freddie Freeman right now, uh, who was obviously the deserving MVP, and had another huge hit today. All he has to do is pile up numbers right now. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Mookie Betts. Why can't the Red Sox get players like him? And Otani, I'll talk a little bit about what he still has left to prove. Obviously, not much, but he has to do something else in the postseason. Although right now, I think he also is very close to being in the just pile up the numbers and rehearse your speech. Let's see what some people say. Uh, Bam Man 100. Yankee field was sloppy all season. I agree. They had all season to fix it and just didn't for no reason. They came home to roost at the worst time. They deserve it for just ignoring the problem. I think you make some interesting points there. Johnny T16. Is that a Star Wars reference? Volpe was a hero yesterday for sure, but failed big time tonight. How do you put that ball in the dirt from only 25 feet away? I think he panicked. I think he just threw it. He made a dumb play. I think that was a mental error more than a physical error. A shout out to a player getting no love, and Tommy Edman, best batting average of the postseason for either team. Yeah, well, he won the National League Championship Series MVP. And they picked up Tommy Edman and Michael Kopech in one trade. I want to go back to the trade deadline and see how many people thought Los Angeles won the trade deadline because they picked up Tommy Edman. Rizzo has some blame, though. You have to hustle to first base. Nope, Johnny T, you sit this one down. He made the play. Cole wasn't covering first. He was walking off the field. Sorry, that's all on Cole. 100% on Cole. So yeah. By the way, I want to just point out a couple other things. Um, this is, by the way, one of my favorite things uh that was posted on Twitter, and it's by the great Sarah Langs. And if you don't follow Sarah Langs on Twitter, then what are you doing? She's at S Langs on Sports. Said this is the fifth straight season of which a Will Smith wins the World Series. 2020, the catcher Will Smith. 2021, 2022, and 2023, Will Smith, the pitcher, left-handed pitcher for Atlanta, for Houston, for Texas, and this year Will Smith again as the catcher. So, you know what? There you go. Will Smith, constantly a champion, and no slapping Chris Rock jokes here. There's some other people just are it's kind of fun to think about and to salute, like Kevin Kiermaier. Kevin Kiermaier is retiring this year, and he, wonderful 12-year career, multiple Gold Gloves. Actually, never named to an All-Star team, which I find interesting. But he's been a wonderful player, primarily with Tampa Bay, and was on the Tampa Bay team that lost to LA. And he finished his career. He didn't play in the World Series, but he did play in the playoffs against the Mets. So he ends his career as a World Series champion. Tyler Glasnow was also from that Tampa Bay squad, bounced around between the Pirates and Tampa Bay. While he was injured and not on the roster, he gets to pick up a World Series ring for his troubles. And I love the combination of Ben Kasparius, the kid from Connecticut, who was made a couple of appearances, made 3 appearances in the regular season and 4 in the postseason, and Edgardo Enriquez. Both of them were in the minor leagues. They combined for 6 regular season appearances, but because they're both on the playoff rosters, they both get a World Series ring for their trouble. Um, uh, Johnny T, nope. Toss of the pitcher is always your secondary option. You're losing this argument. You're incorrect, but thanks for listening to the show. And so you got to tip your hat. Tip your hat to those players who were big parts. And Teoscar Hernandez, who signed with Los Angeles for a 1-year deal after bouncing around between the Astros, mainly became an all-star with Toronto, played 1 year with Seattle, signed a 1-year contract with LA, and he will make out like the proverbial bandit. Over with the Yankees, Aaron Boone's contract is up. What do you do? There's some good managerial prospects out there. Austin Len asks, do you think Boone was wrong for keeping Cole in the game 5th inning? No, it wasn't his fault. And by the way, I give lots of credit for Cole. He pitched his way through the 6th and into the 7th. That's what an ace is supposed to do. And the Yankees didn't have to beat down their bullpen. Their ace got him through the almost all the way through the 7th with 0 earned runs. No, I thought he did the right move there. I have absolutely no problem with that. And the big question now is coming for the Yankees, which is Juan Soto. Now, the fact that the Yankees, there were some people wondering, I saw this, some people asked me, do you think if the Yankees win the World Series, Soto would leave? Do you think he wants to stay with unfinished business? There is exactly one factor that is going to get Juan Soto on your roster, and that is a gigantic pile of money. Nothing else. He is a Scott Boras client, and I've said this all year long. This is the revenge of Scott Boras, who had a horrible offseason last year, and people thinking, oh, and saying out loud, he's done. He doesn't have the influence he used to have. He has how old is he right now? He's 26 years old and in his prime and and legitimate MVP candidate with multiple World Series appearances under his belt. And let's think about who would want to sign him. LA could sign him if Teoscar Hernandez walks. The Giants can sign him. They're dying to sign a superstar. The Mets can sign him. They're dying to get over the hump. The Boston Red Sox can sign him. They have a giant opening for him. The Baltimore Orioles can sign him. They could use another bat and want to take the bad taste of the mouth of a quick October exit. The Chicago Cubs, who have barely missed the postseason the last couple of years, have money and an angry fan base. And the Yankees, right off the top of my head, there's 7 franchises, and there's gonna be an eighth. There's gonna be an eighth because there's always a franchise that says, hey, why not us? Why not us? A team like Seattle could just say, I'm tired of what happened. I want a star. Get me that star. That could happen. There is zero loyalty, nor should there be. Nor should there be. Soto should sign for so much money that his great grandkids can go to law school without taking a student loan. He's earned it. And if the Yankees wanted him, there's one very easy way to get him. Find out what the highest offer is and offer $1 more. Austin Lennon asked me, by the way, should the fans who grabbed bets in game 3, it was actually game 4. Oh, you correct, yes. In game 4, should be banned for coming to the game next season. They should be banned for life. Yeah, there's no question. Oh, by the way, Bandman points out the Phillies are going to give Soto a look too. Of course. They want to win this World Series. Maybe this squad hasn't won one yet. They haven't won one. And to have Soto and Harper side by side with that pitching staff, why not? It'd be pretty left-handed heavy. You know, you have Harper, you have Schwarber, and then you have Soto. Make sure to bring a lefty to face the Phillies. But why not? Why not? Johnny T is talking about his high school coach or something like that. Thank you for watching, Johnny T. But come on. All right. So, Dodger fans who are waking up to watch this, you didn't dream that. That happened. Yankee fans who saw that collapse, you didn't dream that either. That nightmare was real. The Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series. They deserved it. The New York Yankees won the pennant. They deserved that too. But they also handed this World Series. They absolutely handed this World Series to the Dodgers with some of the sloppiest play in one inning that I've seen in a critical game in a long time. So the offseason starts now. Actually, in my opinion, the offseason starts after the parade. The parade is like the end credits. That's like putting the medals on Han, Luke, and I guess off screen to Chewie. That's like the finale. That's the curtain call, is the victory parade. And it's going to happen. And then baseball's gone. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in tomorrow's show. That the companion of the regular season ended about a month ago. And now we face the winter. But guess who's going to be there all off season? Pal Sully, and here at Locked On MLB. We're going to talk a little bit about the offseason tomorrow. Some of the thoughts of the World Series with a little bit of space, and figuring out whose legacies are completely wrapped up and who still has a little bit more to prove. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, talking about the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers and how it came to be. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.